Hey, hello everyone. So today we are going to talk about a pagination feature which is usually commonly used in a table. So as you see, our table basically has around 250 rows, and sometimes it may happen that if there are controls within the table, the page might become unresponsive. So in that case, in our table we do not have any form controls, but suppose if we put any form controls within this, there are chances that if there are say around 500 to 1000 rows, to render all those controls together on one page, the page might become unresponsive. So in that case, what we do is we usually introduce something called as a pagination. So if you have seen a pagination before, it usually looks something like this. So if I just go to Google and show you the pagination below, so it will show you the total number of pages which are available, and it will also show you the next and the previous button. So we are going to implement something like this, and we are also going to customize it later on. So to implement pagination, we'll be using a library called as the ngx-pagination, which is very widely used in Angular. So this is the ngx-pagination web page on the npm repository. So I'll give the link in the description. You all can use the same library. And there's a command for installing the ngx-pagination package. What you do is you copy this, go to your command prompt and install this. So once the library is installed, what we'll have to do is we'll have to install the pagination module in our feature module or the app module. Either way works. So if you have a feature module, then you can directly import this in your feature module, or if you are directly using it in the app module, that is also okay. So if I just copy the import command, go to my dashboard module. So dashboard module happens to be my feature module. So copy this, and if I go to the imports now, so once we have imported the ngx-pagination module, let's go back to the npm repository, copy this directive. So this is the paginate directive that we need to put it along with the ng4. So what this paginate directive does is it will only show a certain number of rows from the total rows, and the inputs that it is accepting is the items per page. So we'll see only 10 items in one page, and also we are seeing the current page here. So let's just quickly copy this. Let's go to the view components, ng4. So this is our ng4. Let me paste it here. So items per page is 10 and current page is p. So let me just name it page for now. So let me go back to the npm. Okay, p number 1. Okay, so let's just go to the component, define a page as we have named it page instead of p. We copy this, and I guess we had renamed it earlier. So once this is done, let's go back to the UI and refresh this. So out of the 250 rows, we see the first 10 rows, but we don't see the option to move from one page to the other. So let's do the coding for that now. Okay, so now we are going to add the pagination directive that was missing on the web page, wherein we can switch back and forth between pages. So let me go back to the npm library, copy the pagination controls from the page, come back to the view components HTML. So just below the table we need to place this, and we had renamed p as page, so we'll keep it like that here. So what this will do is whenever you change the page, the pagination controls will emit an event, and the event will basically be the current page number, and that will be assigned to the page. So once the page gets updated, what will happen is the current page in the paginate directive will get updated automatically, and also you will see the current page that you are on. So once we have added the pagination controls onto our table, what we can do is we can go back to the UI, refresh the page, and check if our pagination controls are available. So yeah, so if you see, we have around 250 rows in our table. So that makes it 25 pages of 10 rows per page. So you have an option to switch between these pages. Also you have an option to switch back and forth with the previous and the next button. So the previous button gets disabled whenever you reach the first page, and if you reach the last page, the next button gets disabled. So all this comes inbuilt with the third-party library that we have already installed. So further, what we'll do is we'll try to customize the pagination in such a way that we get a drop down to basically directly go to a particular page. So if you see currently, you see one ellipses 17, 18, 19 and again ellipses. We can't really choose a page which is in between 19 and 25. We'll have to go to 19 and then come back to that page. And also we'll be giving the user an option to see the number of rows in one particular page. So currently we see the number of rows are actually 10, and we have hard coded this value. So what we'll do is we'll give the user a drop down option wherein we'll give 10, 25 and 50 rows that will be visible, and once the user clicks 25 rows, he'll basically see 25 rows in a particular page, and also the number of pages will be divided accordingly. Also, what we are going to do is we are going to actually give the pagination within the table itself. So it will be an embedded row within the table, which will basically help us to switch between the pages, and also it will give an option to the user to basically select the number of rows that are visible in one page. And along with that, we'll be adding some page information like the start index and the end index. So we'll see all that in a while.
Okay, so let's get started by firstly commenting out this pagination directive here. So we go here, we comment this out, we create a new row for pagination above the ng4 one. So let's just call this pagination row, and within this we have TDs. So let's say our pagination, this takes call span of 2. I'm guessing you all already know what call span is. So let's just say the call span is 3 and the total columns are 6. So we have already taken up 3 columns, so that makes it 6 columns. Now let's go ahead and add the CSS for pagination row. So if I go here, so let's say the background color here is, so this will make the pagination row stand out. So let's go to the npm library. So let's copy this pagination template directive. They have exposed a pagination API which we'll be using. So pagination, and yeah, so within this pagination template we'll be putting our form controls, that is the drop down rows. Also, one more thing what we'll need with the pagination template is the event. So out of the 2 events, we'll just need the page change event. Let's copy that here. So whenever the page is changed, your page change will be called, and it will actually, you don't need this. So what you'll do is you'll directly assign this to your page. So the $event will actually emit the current page number. So within this pagination template, let's use Bootstrap, and let's say div.row, no gutters. No gutters is basically it will not put any padding between the 2 divs. Now let's just call md4 and call md8. Let's also make it no padding here. This also becomes no padding. Okay, so this will be used for just the viewing page information. So let's make it viewing page information, and this will be used for our pagination directive. Okay, let's check it on UI if it's working or no. Okay, So I have used an H3 here, but I mean I'll be converting this particular part to view just the page information, wherein we'll see the start index and the end index. So here is where our main pagination controls will lie. So let's just edit that. So let's begin with the pagination directive first. So here what we are going to do is like we saw in the previous pagination control, we have the next and previous button and we have the page numbers between that. So let's say this is custom pagination, and within this let's say this is pagination icon and pagination previous. There's another div which will hold our page numbers and followed by again pagination icon and pagination next. So let's quickly add the previous and the next button. So to do that, we'll create a span tag, and within this span tag, if I just need to put an icon, so I open bootstrap icon, search for chevron, so copy the SVG here, put it within this, and similarly for the next, you create a span. So next looks something like this, copy the SVG, paste it under this. So the previous icon should not be visible whenever I'm on the first page, right? So for that you'll put an ngif and p dot is first page. So p dot is first page. If we are on the first page, this will actually return true. So whenever we are on the first page, the previous icon should not be visible. So that is why we have put an ngif. Similarly, whenever we are on the last page, our next button should not be visible. So is last page. Also, whenever I click the previous button, so this is the previous. So if I click, I need to jump back to the previous page. And whenever I click next, I need to jump to the next page. So let's check out the UI. I refresh the page. So yeah, so you see I am able to switch between the previous and the next page. Okay, now let's just quickly line these items using CSS. So before we add the CSS, you all must be wondering what this p.previous, p.next, p.is last page or is first page is. So what we had done is let me go back. So what we had done is we had actually used a template reference variable hashtag p, and we had given it the value of pagination API. So this pagination API, what it does is it exposes certain functions which we can use inside the pagination template. So is the previous, next, is last page, is first page, all these are function exposed by the pagination API that we are actually leveraging, and all the information about these functions, all the functions that are exposed are available on the npm library. Now let's add some CSS to this. So let's first take the pagination icon. Pagination icon would be common across the previous and next. So what we'll do is we'll line this first. So if we give it an inline block, it will come in one line. We'll make the cursor pointer and we'll make the font weight bold. Then you have the pagination previous. So for this, let's just say margin right would be 7px, and similarly pagination next will have margin right of 7px. Along with this, what we'll do is we'll add custom pagination, and inside this page number, that will also that block also we'll make it inline block. Okay, now let's save this, refresh this. If I so yeah, so the arrow icons have gotten lined up. Okay, now let's just add the drop down control quickly. Okay, so now let's add the drop down. So for that we'll say span page below this. So let's say this span is the form control itself, and the third span will basically display the total number of pages that we have here. So let get last page. So p.get last page will return the last page that we have on the pagination. So basically it displays the total number of pages we have, and here within this span we'll have the form control. So let's say select tab, let's say this is page toggle, and ID also we'll keep it the same. Let's give it an ng model, and let's say this is page. So whenever I select an option from the drop down, it gets assigned it assigns the particular page value to the page variable that we have. So within this we'll create an ng container, which so we'll create an ng for here. This runs from let item of create range. So let's say this is p.get last page. So you all must be wondering what this create range function is all about. So the pagination API, it doesn't give us all the pages starting from 1 to the last page. So what we'll be doing is we'll create this create range function. It will give us an array of items. So it will run from the first page to the last page. So we are basically passing the last page index. So it will give us an array of objects which will have all the page numbers starting from 1 to the last page. Okay, so let's just create that in the component. So we need to create this create range function. So let's go to the component. So this will accept the last page. This will be of type number. It will return any. So let's just say this is there is a pagination array which will be of type any, which is a blank array first. Let's create a for loop which runs from 0 to the last page plus. So constant page equal to, let's say there's a label which we need to display in the drop down. So this is I plus 1, and the value would be also similar, I plus 1. Okay, I forgot to put a comma here. So what we do is we add it to the pagination array page, and at the end of the function we return the pagination array. Okay, so let's just quickly create an option tag for our select drop down. So the value would be item dot value, and the same thing you have to print it here, item dot value. Okay, so let's, and also whenever we select this, so we need to put a click event and assign page as item dot value. Okay, now also we quickly put a CSS for the select drop down. So we have the page number here. So page number dot, and within that all span tags should be display inline block. Let's add margin right 70x. Save this. Let's go to the UI now. Refresh this. So you see all the possible drop-down options ranging from 1 to the last page that we have on pagination, and whenever we click on one of the drop-down options, it actually takes us to that particular page. So 2, 1, the next button are also in sync. So whenever you click on previous or next, so the drop-down option also gets refreshed automatically. And also one more thing is, if you are on the first page, the previous icon is disabled, and if you are on the last page, the next icon is disabled. Add the drop down option to view the number of rows in a page. So let's go back to the HTML. So at this level we need to add it, so let's call it again page number. I'm using the same class as this will also be displayed inline. So let's say this is a select box. Let's say number of rows visible. ID, we don't need the ID here. And let's say this is an ng model. Let's call this number of rows. And we'll have to define this in the component. So here, number of rows, let's just say, let's keep it 10 for now. So number of rows also we'll need to update it in the paginate directive. So we had hard coded 10, so let's just say number of rows. Let's come back to our select tag. Now these values are hard coded, so no need to write an ng for here. So like 10 you'll have 25 and 50. So let's give the same value. Okay, now this is done. Now let's just check the UI how it looks. Okay, so you see the 10, 25 and 50 drop down. Whenever I click 25, you see 25 rows, and whenever I click 50, you will see that many rows. Also, the number of pages will get updated, because we have 50 pages or 50 rows in one page. We'll have a total of 5 pages only, because the total number of rows that we have is 250. Okay. Also, let's just see if our next and previous works fine. So those are also working fine. So one issue that I see here is, so let's just say the number of rows that are visible is 10 if I am on the 18th page. Okay, and then if I go ahead and select the number of rows to be 50, so in that case the total number of pages whenever we have selected 50 was 5, and we were currently on the 18th page. So in this case what we'll have to do is, whenever we switch the number of rows, we'll have to navigate back to the first page. So to do that, what we'll have to do is just write a change event here, and let's make the page as 1 whenever the number of rows get changed. So let's refresh this. So let's say I'm on the 20th page. If I click 50, so this navigates back to the first page. Okay, so now we are done with the pagination controls. Now let's just finish up the page information. So we had already created a placeholder for the page information. So let's go there. Let's create a span tag here. Let's say viewing. Let's get the first start index. Start index. Let's pass it get current. So this will return the current page value and get last page. Okay, so let's, and along with this we need to also show the last index. Get last index. This will also be a function which will accept the current and the last page. So let's copy it there, followed by of the total contacts dot length. Okay, So also let's put a null check here. Okay. So we'll have to create these two get start index and get last index functions in the component. So let's copy these. So get start index will accept the current page, which is a number, and the last page, which also happens to be a number, and it will return as a string value. So let's just copy this for the last index function. Okay. So if I just paste the business logic for start index, yeah. So what we have done here is we have hard coded the first index as 1 initially, and then we are checking if the current page is equal to the last page, and also we are checking if the current page and the last page the value is greater than 0. Okay. So let's just consider the first page. In that case, I mean, if say we have 50 rows and we have selected the drop down value as 50, so we will have only one page here. So in that case, the current page will be equal to the last page, right? So this condition becomes false, and also the second condition wherein the current page and last page are greater than 0 also become false. So the index that we are returning is essentially 1. But let's say we have in all 10 pages, okay, and currently we are on the third page, and the number of rows displayed in one page is 10. Okay, so the current page would be 3 and the last page would be 10. So this condition is satisfied. So what it will return is, it will return the number of rows, that is 10, into the current page, that is 3 minus 1, which becomes 2. So 2 into 10 becomes 20, and the first we are adding 1 to that. So essentially we are returning 21 whenever we are on the third page. So our third page will begin with the starting index of 21. Okay. A similar logic would be followed for the get last index function, wherein the last index would be the penultimate row in the contacts array. So that will be assigned as the last index at the start of the function, and then if the current page is not equal to last page, then meaning if there are total say 10 pages and we are on the third page, then what it will do is this condition would be satisfied and we would be returning number of rows, that is 10, into the current page, that is 3. So the last index of the third page would be 30. And if we are on the first page itself, then the current page would not be equal to the last page. So this condition will not be satisfied. In that case, this dot contacts dot length will be returned as the return value of get last index. So once you're done with the get start index and get last index function, we'll just look at the UI quickly. So if I refresh the page, now we have in all 250 rows, and on the first page we are seeing 1 to 10 rows. So if I go to the next page, 11 to 20, and if I go to the last page now directly, so it will show me 241 to 250. Now if I switch to 50 rows per page, so this particular viewing section also gets updated and the number of pages also get updated. So we are pretty much done here with the implementation. So just for the final touches, we'll add a list icon just besides the viewing page information. So if I go to the bootstrap icons, if I search for list here, so I'll take this particular SVG, copy this here, go to the HTML. Let's add a span tag here. Okay, now let's go back to the UI. Yeah, so that is all. Thanks for tuning in.